Hey guys, Dusty here. I'm just down at the beach this morning. Have the whole place to myself. Check it out. Pretty sweet. And anyways, I thought I would shoot a video and tell you about how I coached a girl to finally break the 4-hour marathon mark. Alright, so this person approached me about 3.5 months out from their marathon where they're hoping to break 4 hours, and she had just done a marathon a couple of months earlier and she had the fitness to go sub 4, but she blew up a little bit, which happens in a marathon, and she ended up going 4:15. She followed a running program. I think it was from Women's Running. It was one of those generic plans that you can print off the internet, which work fine if you can follow them and stick to it. So anyway, she asked for help, and I wouldn't say I so much coached her as just tweaked her training schedule slightly and gave her a different race strategy, which I'll get into right away. So first of all, I asked to look at all of her training in her build up to her last marathon, and right away I noticed that all of her long runs were way too fast. She was actually doing all of her long runs at her goal race pace of a 4-hour marathon. So right away I knew why she blew up on race day, because she had all that fatigue of doing multiple long runs at race pace, which is way too hard on the body. So, I mean, that was probably the biggest key of all of her going faster in her second marathon, was easing back on those long runs. So immediately I had her do her long runs at least 20 seconds per kilometer slower. After that, I looked at her schedule and I set in place what's called the Yasso 800s, and that'll take care of your speed work if you're training for a marathon. If you're not sure what that is, I'll link it at the end of the video and in the description below. But essentially, it's a bunch of 800s that you do every week or every other week on the track, and it gets you ready for a marathon. So those were the two biggest things that I changed in her training plan. I slowed her down on her long runs, and I also didn't have her run, I'm not sure if she ran over 2.5 hours, but I certainly wasn't going to let her run over 3 hours. I don't believe in doing that for a marathon. And then second of all, to make things simple, I gave her Yasso 800s for 3.5 months leading into her race. Another thing going into her race was she also did a 10K in those 3.5 months, a 10K race, and she did it in 47 minutes. And she also did her first half marathon in 1 hour and 45 minutes. So that's super obvious to me that she had the speed to run a sub 4. She just needed to change things around a little bit differently and hold that pace for the full marathon. Alright, so the training plan was taken care of. Now it was time to work on her mental state, getting her mentally ready for the race and believing in herself, and also changing her race plan. So going into this race, she was fairly certain that she should go out way faster than race pace, knowing that she's probably going to blow up at the 35K mark anyways, and then hopefully she just has enough time in the bank that she doesn't blow up too bad and still runs sub 4. I had to get this crazy idea out of her head. I mean, we've all had this idea. That's how I used to race back in the day when I first started. But going into a marathon with that plan, any race in general, is usually a bad idea, and especially a marathon. So we just really had to make her believe that she was ready and she could actually hold the race pace. I mean, she held it for every single long run leading into her last marathon. And just based off her 10K and half marathon times, she absolutely had the speed. So we changed her race plan to actually holding race pace, or even starting off slightly slower and then building throughout the race. Alright, so those 3.5 months flew by. She followed my plan for the long runs. She nailed all of her Yasso 800s, often doing them well under 4 minutes, which tells me she's very ready. And race day came, she stuck with the plan, and she faded a little bit at the end, but you know what? She went 3:56 and got her sub 4 marathon. I think now, kind of in the back of her head, she's thinking, oh wow, I did that, maybe I can qualify for the Boston Marathon. And I think she can. She has the speed, but I told her to spend the next year and try and get your half marathon a little bit faster, try to get that speed first. So I think if she can get her half marathon 5 to 10 minutes faster over the next year, then she has a realistic shot at going for Boston. And that's another thing I should mention. So many runners just want to make Boston, and they're just marathon runners. And sometimes what you need to do is take a step back and You can still run a marathon that year, but maybe have a different focus. Maybe do some 5Ks, some 10Ks, maybe make the half marathon your focus, and maybe try to get some speed in those legs and try to go a little bit faster, rather than just constantly training the slow pace of the marathon and just getting incrementally faster every year, or not getting faster at all. I mean, I've seen so many runners chase Boston for many years or even decades, just never to get it. Whereas I'm fairly certain if, one, they slowed their long run pace down, because everyone runs their long runs too fast, and if they focused on racing some shorter distances, that they would have the speed necessary to, when they step back up to the marathon, they could get that Boston qualifying time. Anyways, I just wanted to share some of my tips on how I took someone under the 4-hour mark just by changing a couple of things and getting her mentally believing in herself that she could actually do it. So, like always, if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe for more everything running, triathlon, and nutrition related.